So as Rebecca said, I'm Michelle Baker. I'm the current CEO and co-founder of Stone Ledge Enrichment after a very long career with Disney. And she also mentioned that anytime throughout this presentation, if you have questions, just throw them in the chat. Unmute however you want to do it. I'm definitely the kind of person that likes to have an open dialogue and not just have a one-way passive conversation. So anything that you need clarity from, about, just throw it out there. Anything that kind of resonates with you that you want to share a story about, please do. With that said, Rebecca, do you mind if I share my presentation?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, let's see. All right, just can you see that? All right.
Yeah, we can see it.
All right, perfect. So the topic for today is really about as a leader developing others, and I've been lucky to be in both kinds of leadership roles in the last 3 decades. The one where you are in a corporate environment and you have a structured team, and there's very specific hierarchy, especially on ships. And then one that I'm in right now, which is entrepreneurial, and the teams are smaller, and it's a completely different type of day-to-day business, but both of them require having the vision of a leader, having, the capacity to develop others and bring others along on the journey. And so I wanted to share with you three of the strategies that I've used on both sides of the coin. I've used these things in corporate America when I was a leader and moving 1,000 miles an hour, and I've used them in my role as a business owner. And if any of this resonates, like I said, please do let me know, and happy to take it even, further down the rabbit hole, as we say, if you want some clarification. So Rebecca's already introduced me, but I did spend 24 years of my about 30-year journey in corporate America at the Walt Disney Company, part of the opening team for Disney Cruise Line, 15 years shoreside, and then spent a couple years on board ships as an officer, and then 7 years with the Disney Institute. And at the Disney Institute, we were considered the external training arm of the Walt Disney Company. And so things like leadership and service and culture are things that are part of my DNA at this point, and definitely feel passionate about. But getting right into the actual content, in terms of leadership, this is what we believe at Stone Ledge. And if you think about a lot of things that you'll see online, whether it's in LinkedIn or the books that are being written, there's a lot of information out there right now, incredible information about developing people. You have to find a way to develop people under you. You have to find a way to collaborate and care for the people under you. And we are going to touch on that today. But one of the things that we really believe at Stone Ledge is it's more, as a leader, it's more than just giving your all to the people that are under you. We also believe that to be an aligned leader, you need to take time to make sure that you're embracing self-care, that you're taking care of your own personal growth, that you're focusing kind of inward as you go on this journey. Because if the leader isn't taking care of themselves, it's really hard long term to take care of others. And I have to give credit where credit is due. I've spent some time on the Vision to Reality Foundation website, and I think that you all do a really nice job calling out things like self-care and giving those tools and resources to your members. And so you get this. And like I said, you're doing a really nice job bringing a lot of these things together. So with our methodology, we talk about personal growth and self-care. We talk about, yes, people development. That's incredibly important. But the other thing that we talk about in equal amounts is the fact that as leaders, whether you're for profit or not for profit, there are going to be business results that you have to prioritize and drive. And so we think that the best leaders are those that can do all three. So under that umbrella, I'm going to share one strategy from each of those three pillars, and hopefully it resonates and adds a little bit of value to what you're all doing as leaders right now. So the first strategy is this. And this one is under that umbrella of personal growth and embracing self-care. When you establishing a focused and aligned start to your day is among the most impactful leadership habits you can develop. And here's what I mean by that. When you start the day and you immediately go into this mode of, I've got things to do, I'm a leader, I'm busy. Rebecca mentioned before the program started that a lot of you have full-time jobs in addition to what you're doing for the foundation. And so I imagine there's days where you wake up and you're like a checklist. I got this, I've got these meetings, I've got this to do, we're meeting later. That's great. That sometimes is part of being a leader. But when you start the day, and even if it's only 5 minutes, and you start the day focused on yourself, focused on what do I need to get aligned first, to me, that can be one of the most impactful things that you can do as a leader. Let me give you a couple of examples. And so for some people, starting the day aligned might literally be 5 minutes to just eyes still closed, maybe do a breathing exercise and say, you know what? I've got this. I've got this. I've got this. All right, let's go. It could be as simple as that. For others, like me, I usually spend about an hour in the morning as soon as I get up, before I talk to anyone, before I turn my computer on, and I journal, I meditate, I stretch. Yes, I have a cup of coffee. I love organic black coffee. So that's part of my day as I'm journaling, but I'm getting my mind right. I'm kind of getting my mind, my body, everything like right for me. And then I can give the rest of the day to the entire world. One of the things that I definitely advocate against, and this is just, it doesn't work for me, is I can't pick up my phone and even just briefly check email. Because I know we've probably all said that. Like, let me just take a quick look. Next thing you know, you're responding to an email from Rebecca, or you see a headline and now you're down the news rabbit hole, or you want to get back. That's right, I owe someone this piece of information. It just takes the focus away from self. And so starting the day aligned is definitely something that has completely changed the way I approach leadership. And if I could, I'd love to share with you a brief story because I'm banging the drum of starting the day aligned right now, but I wasn't always good at it. And so, just a brief story. Of the 17 years I was with Disney Cruise Line, 2 of those years I was an officer on board the ships. And when you're on board ships, you work 7 days a week, usually 10 to 12 hours a day for the length of your contract, which is somewhere between 4 and 8 months. And so it's like constant, you're go, 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 go. Well, in the middle of my very first contract, I found myself starting to get a little crispy around the edges. Like I was starting to feel a little bit stressed because I was literally rolling out of bed in my cabin, getting dressed, and going to work, which was 50 yards down the hall. I mean, it was like literally you could just go to work. And so I decided that I needed to do something for me so that I would kind of fix the way I was feeling. And that something for me turned out to be a morning routine because I'm an early bird. I usually wake up between, 5 and 5:30 without an alarm. I just wake up. I was doing that on ships, and people don't usually need me at that point in the day. And so I decided every morning I was going to get up. I was going to go up on deck 4, which is the promenade deck, and I would go up. I would take, deep breaths. I would walk until the sun came up around that beautiful deck. And then I would go back, shower, get ready for work. But it changed everything. Just taking that time to think my thoughts. I didn't listen to music. I just looked at the ocean and it literally just changed everything. And then I not only started feeling good about that contract that I was on, but I finished the contract strong. And then I did 3 more after that because I found the secret sauce for me in terms of, being able to just start from a really good place. So, any questions, Rebecca, before I quickly dive into the second strategy?
Um, no questions from the chat, I believe, but I do have a question of my own that I want to ask you.
Yeah.
So you emphasize the importance of having a morning routine and you um talked about how much it helped you. So I'm wondering, um, what about people who are not morning people who struggle getting up in the morning and are more so night owls? What would you suggest for them? Or how would they start small to kind of start their day with some more mindfulness?
Yeah, that's a fantastic way to, that's a really, really solid question. There's two things I would recommend right off the bat. First of all, for night owls, and I've had this conversation with a couple of clients before to where it gives them a lot of peace of mind to wrap up the day in a similar fashion. So they wrap up the day by shutting off all their electronics. They kind of do a quick recap mentally about what happened today. They do all their processing, they do their journaling at night, and it just lets them get whatever's going on up here out onto paper, and then take some deep breaths, do a little stretching, and then go to bed. So you can completely reverse it. For others that just wake up later, and I know I use the word morning routine, but maybe it's, you get up at noon, but it's like the first 5 minutes of your day as you're going from, resting the body and resting the mind overnight. And now I'm transitioning into my workday, doing something similar, just to kind of make sure that you're aligned and centered before you give of yourself to others.
Yeah, thank you. That really helped.
Absolutely. So I know that the thing that the headline of this presentation as we were getting ready for it is has to do with developing others, whether you're a small business or work in corporate America. And so the second strategy has to do with exactly that. So when you foster a collaborative workplace, you allow the best ideas to surface, you enable ownership, and you compound results. And so we're going to dig into this deeper in just a second, but I mentioned a few minutes ago that I met Winnie through the Jack Welch Management Institute. And one of the stories that Jack Welch shared in the book that we had to read in a couple of the classes, actually, Winning by Jack Welch, he mentioned the story about creating a collaborative environment at General Electric when he was the CEO there. And he said that for a long time it wasn't collaborative. It was very hierarchical. It was like, who's your leader? And that's just the way it worked out. But they started doing these things called workout sessions where they brought people from all different levels into their location in Crotonville, their training center there, and they just had this situation set up to where they brought all these ideas to the table, and then the senior leaders had a commitment that by the end of that work session, they would give an update on every idea that was brought forward, whether it was like, great idea, we're gonna have to do that maybe next year, great idea, we're starting a team on whatever it was. And so the quick story is that at one of these sessions, I think he was a mechanic or an engineer with General Electric came to him and said, you know what, Jack, this was great. The hard part is for the last 25 years, you've paid for my hands, and all that time you could have had my mind as well for free. And so I think that when you have a collaborative workplace where ideas are brought to the table, regardless of what role you're in, regardless of how long you've been with a company, it just brings ideas that are going to accelerate results and help everyone all involved. And it gives ownership to the people that are bringing them forward. The reason why that's so important, especially now, especially post 2020, post pandemic, and I think this number is actually a little bit low, but so many people are pausing to reflect on what work means to them. What is my purpose at work? And if people are just going to work and punching a clock and doing their tasks and then going home at the end of the day, and they're not being asked for their opinions, it typically isn't working out so well. Another thing I want to point out here is the third bullet down, which is 7 out of 10 people that quit said it was either because of job clarity, I didn't know what I was doing, I was missing that purpose, or my leaders just were poor. They didn't ask me my opinions, they didn't develop me, none of that. And so when you do have a lack of collaboration, you have people that are leaving, which is your attrition, or even worse, they're staying, but they're not doing as much as they could be doing. So this is why in a lot of our content, we talk about the power of collaboration. So it's easy to say have a collaborative environment, but how exactly do you do that? I'm just going to cover it quickly. By the way, if anyone ever wants to have a follow-up conversation to dig into any of these topics in more detail, just let me know. I think I'm on the invite. If not, I'm sure that Winnie and Rebecca and Queen Key can send you my information. Always happy to have that conversation. But here's a couple of ways that you can become a collaborative leader. First of all, it's a blend of approaches. And so sometimes it's formal, like having a suggestion box, or every Monday we have a team huddle and invite people to share their ideas. But sometimes it's just as simple as having an informal conversation and asking people what they think. Like, hey, Rebecca, how's your day going? Listen, I'm thinking about making a change in how we're operating, how we're providing guest service. Can I bounce some ideas off of you? And now like she's sharing her ideas and her lens on those things. And the more you bring people into that, the more they're just going to think, all right, my opinion matters. Definitely rewards wins of every size. So if Rebecca did have a great idea, or even a moderately good idea that we ended up using and it made a difference, tell people about it. Praise in public. Definitely coach in private if there's anything that needs to be that didn't work out and you want to talk about the details. But here's the other big thing is that, and the last thing I'll share on this topic is especially working on ships where hierarchy is such a part of the fabric of that environment. When you talk about having a collaborative environment, sometimes the senior leaders, especially those that have been in the maritime industry for a long time, are like, I don't want every decision to have to come to a vote. That's just not the way it is. And I would always reassure that these leaders, that's not what it means. Not everything has to be a vote. Not everything has to be done collaborative. Um, but being that leader that welcomes that information is just going to open things up. Sometimes you still need to step up and say, all right, people, this is the way we're going. This is what we have to do. We're on a deadline. I need everyone to do these 10 things by 4 o'clock. Make sense? Okay, awesome. All right. So the last thing we're going to switch to, and I'll pause again really quick, Rebecca. Any questions about leading a culture of collaboration?
I think you're good again on the chat at least, but I have another question of my own,
Sure.
which is as a leader, and if you're in a higher position and you want to have more um kind of back and forth with your team members, sometimes team members can be scared to speak up. So how would you go about encouraging those conversations and like encouraging them to speak up so that those conversations can happen?
Yeah. To answer the question, I'd like to share just a very quick story. Because the answer is to be known as someone that is going to listen. So here's the story. As you may know, maybe not, but as you may know, my son is my business partner, and he's brilliant. I've enjoyed working side by side with him to build this business so much. He is on the borderline between Gen Y and Gen Z, so he's kind of a millennial, kind of Gen Z. The reason I bring that up is coming from a corporate environment, there's a lot of conversations where there's like no silence. In fact, you're like waiting for your turn to jump in there and say something. I'll never forget the first time I asked him his opinion on kind of a big change for the business. And I said, AJ, I'm thinking we should go in this direction. I know we've been going east, but I'm thinking maybe southeast might serve us better. And here was his response. Now, I don't know if that was uncomfortable for you, and it went on longer. It was uncomfortable for me, and I'm his mom, I'm his business partner. Um, but what he was processing, he was simply like he was thinking, because he told me later, he like in his mind, he was like, okay, I kind of like this. How's that gonna shift our workload? Do we have enough bandwidth to take that on? Trying to play on his mind how it would look. But he was doing all of that internally without like easing my pain of having a silent moment while he thought about it. And so, of course, now when I ask him something and he doesn't say anything, I just sit back and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to give him some time because usually what he comes out with is just amazing. So, a funny way to answer the question, but I think the biggest thing is to encourage the conversation is definitely ask. You have to ask the questions, but then you have to like consciously take the time to listen and to like thoughtfully listen, to not just, you know, okay, that was great, but we're going to end up doing it my way anyways. Like you just take the time to listen, ask questions to clarify understanding. And the more you do that and you meaning any leader, the more you do that and genuinely appreciate that there's so many different styles of communication, that people are going to start getting very, very comfortable, having those collaborative type of conversations.
Yeah, that was really helpful. And it seems like it's just something that you have to build up over time and
Yes.
that you should be prepared for any kind of response.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, if you ask the question, you definitely have to be prepared for the response.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, awesome. So the last strategy, going through the pillars, this one has to do with driving business results. And before I switch over, this one is really aimed at um, any leader that has ever had this kind of day to where you start, whatever your start time is, you dive into work and then you go through a very busy day, meeting, emails, phone calls, unexpected conversations, meeting. And at the end of the day, you stop your work and you look back and you think, what did I actually get done? Like, did I actually accomplish anything today? So this is a strategy for those type of days. And this the strategy is actually a quote by Abraham Lincoln. And the strategy is called Sharpen the Axe. Abraham Lincoln once famously said, "Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, and I will spend the first four sharpening the axe." So what that has always meant for me is, yes, I've had days like I just described where I'm just busy, even as an entrepreneur and a business owner, I'm busy all day long. And then I look back and I think, did I get the right things done? Did I actually get anything done that's going to move the business forward? And so what this does for me is really kind of laser focuses where those actions go and what the priorities are. And to do that, we use a couple of strategies that I can't take credit for. One is called the Ivy Lee method, and you can look it up. You can take a screenshot. I know this is being recorded, but this is the one method that has really changed the way I do things. So, and I won't show it to you, like it's just basically right here. And of course I have project planning software and I big into Google in terms of organizing my day and so on. But literally at the end of every day, I sit down and I write down the tasks that I have to do tomorrow. And when I say tasks, what I'm thinking about are those big rocks that have to be done, the big things that are moving the business forward. One could be getting ready for this presentation. I did not start getting ready for the presentation at, 10 minutes to 12. I knew that that was going to be something that had to be prioritized. And so I write down a list of all the things that I have to get done tomorrow. And then the second step in the Ivy League method is to put those in priority order. Like this is definitely the first thing I'm going to tackle, which isn't the always the most fun thing to do, but it's the thing I know I have to get done to move the business forward. And then here's the second thing and the third thing and so on. And then when the next day begins, I usually do open up my email, open up my software, get my desktop ready. But it's so easy at that point just to look at my email and then go to LinkedIn and see what's been posted recently. And next thing I know, an hour and a half has gone by. Instead, I'm a big fan of deep work. So I go into like airplane mode or focus mode on the computer and I start that first task. When I'm focused and fresh in the morning, I can usually get, 4 hours worth of work done in about an hour and a half because I'm blinders on getting that most important thing done. And then I usually stop and then I'll like check email and I'll spend half an hour, seeing what else has happened. And then I'll go back into focus mode again. But this method works so well for me in terms of getting bigger things, higher priority things done than just letting whatever task is coming in, kind of order my day. When I was describing that, I mentioned this concept of, focusing really hard for like an hour to 2 hours and then stepping away and doing lower priority things. There's a businessman and philosopher. I'm a huge fan. I think he's phenomenal, by the name of Naval Ravikant. And I heard him mention this in a podcast that he was giving, and it's this concept of sprint, rest, and reassess. So you sprint really hard, and there's a thing called the ultradian rhythm, which is how the brain works. But briefly, you can focus and sprint really hard for anywhere from 60 to 120 minutes. Then the brain needs a break. Even if it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, get away from the computer, go walk outside, just go stretch, but literally get your eyes off of the computer for 10, 15 minutes, reassess, which means come back. All right, what needs to be done next? What's next on the list? What's my next meeting? And then get into another sprint again. You do that throughout the course of the day, I promise you, you'll get done more than just like blinders on for 8 hours. And by the end of the day, you're like reading the same email 3 or 4 times because nothing's processing anymore. So that is how like we said, that third pillar is driving the right business results, and it comes from prioritizing what's being worked on. So as a quick strategy recap, I just wanted to share this. I'm going to skip over this really quick, but this is what's helped us. Those two things, the sprint, rest, reassess, and prioritizing what we worked on, has really helped us a lot with Stone Ledge, because the only thing I was going to mention here is that when we started, we were working on everything all at once. And many of you know this. You're the CFO, you're the marketing director, you're the onstage talent. And it was just too much. And so we ended up using these two strategies very effectively to help with Stone Ledge. So last thing, really quick, is a strategy recap. Take care of yourself. Make some sort of alignment a must. So make sure that you are turning the mirror on yourself and saying, what do I need first so that I can, because you can only give what you have inside. And if you're scattered inside, that's all you're going to be able to give. So make sure you align first before you give yourself to the world. Foster a culture of collaboration. And then finally, whatever method works for you, make sure that you are sharpening that axe, taking time to plan and prioritize. So I'm going to stop my share in just a second. I wanted to share with you, if you'd like to get in touch with us, certainly stoneledgeenrichment.com is our website. And as I mentioned a few minutes ago, if you want to just reach out to me and further the conversation, Rebecca and Winnie and Quinky, they all have my direct email.